I'm Dennis Pullin. One of my favorite parts about being president and CEO of Virtua Health is getting to know our colleagues and the many ways they are here for good. Each person contributes to healthy communities, and each person has a story to tell. Let's meet one. Anna, Jeff, thank you for joining us on Here for Good.
Thanks for having us.
So, I've interviewed a father-daughter duo. I've interviewed a mother and her two daughters. Never a couple. Jeff, I'll start with you. How long have you been at Virtua and where do you work?
I am going on over 15 years. I work at Virtua Marlton, the hospital, in the respiratory therapy department as the manager.
I started my first job at Virtua about 13 years ago. And then I did take a break where I did leave, but I came back. I've been here about a year now. I manage the rehab services department at Our Lady of Lourdes.
Have you always been in respiratory?
No, I actually started off in the rehab department as a physical therapy aide, and that was back in 2009. So pretty much right after high school, Virtua was my first job, and I'm very grateful. And that's where I met my lovely wife, Anna, in the rehab department. Went on to pursue my career at respiratory, went to respiratory school. Virtua was huge in supporting reimbursement, and I was able to get a job as a respiratory therapist when I graduated. 5 years went by, and then I became the clinical coordinator.
Jeff's been here for 13 years, and you mentioned a moment ago that you were here and you left, and then you came back. How long have you been here now?
Been here just at my 1 year anniversary.
You guys met while working in physical therapy. How'd that happen?
Well,
and I say that, listen, I've been with my wife almost 40 years, and we actually met at work. Not Virtua, but we worked at the same company. But tell me about, you were at Marlton when you met?
So my first job was at Marlton. I'm a physical therapist by trade, and he was the aide there. So as the aide, his job is basically to help me out. And I guess he did a really good job about it.
Was it anything about Virtua as an organization and sort of our presence in the community that sort of drew you back?
You can ask anyone. I had said from day one, if I ever choose to go into leadership, Virtua is the only place I've ever worked that I would do that. I see what it's done for me, for him, for our family, and just the way they invest in their own.
And Jeff, you mentioned that in your introduction that you were able to take advantage of the tuition reimbursement, the way that Virtua likes to invest in our colleagues. So tell me a little bit about that journey, that commitment, and taking advantage of the tuition reimbursement to help further your career.
yeah, so I'm very thankful to have that opportunity. I was working full-time as a physical therapy aide. I needed health insurance, so thankfully, I was allowed the flexibility to maneuver my schedule around, maintain full-time while being a full-time student. Also, I'm actually in a degree advancement program for Rowan and Virtua as well, that I'm taking advantage of that.
And I think that's great. And I encourage all of our colleagues to do as you have done and taking advantage of that. I mentioned your long history with Virtua is actually a lot longer than most, because if I recall, you were born at one of Virtua's hospitals?
I was born at the old Voorhees Hospital. That is no longer, but yeah.
What about family? Do you guys have any kids?
So we have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they were both born at Voorhees, and they both attend the CDC, the Child Development Center. And it's just, we talk about what Virtua has done for me, for Jeff, but as a family as a whole, the CDC specifically, I can just say, has been the greatest blessing to our family. I'm meeting people from other areas of the department, other hospitals, other places you might not interact normally, because their kids are friends.
What does the family do for fun? You sit around and talk about Virtua, or what? What do you do for fun as a family?
Football Sunday's big at our house. Also, baseball. Our oldest son loves baseball, so I'm out there pitching to him outside.
Even though the two of you met at Marlton, I understand that's not really where your connection sort of evolved. You guys love softball, correct? And you were on a co-ed softball team by the name of...
At the time, it was the Marlton Monsoon. And now it's the Goon Squad.
And the team's great. And of course, I brought her along for the ride for softball. We finally won the trophy this year. So
Oh,
the champions.
well, maybe one of these days I'll get to come out and watch you guys play. You mentioned your kids at the CDC and sort of the value of being part of an organization that provide those types of services. How does that help you as parents? You know, the people that are taking care of them are people that you consider colleagues and friends. And tell me what that means.
There's nothing better than just knowing that they're in a safe space and they're with people who are just loving on them and they're teaching them. I don't know that either of us could be where we are today if we didn't have that support.
And there's a lot of joy. I've spent some time at the CDC, and I'm amazed at the joy that I see in those kids at such a small age. What is it that keeps you here? What is it that allows you to tell yourself, this is where I need to be?
I think it starts with culture for me. I feel part of the Virtua family. Like my sister works for Virtua.
Oh, you missed that part.
Yeah, she actually got my foot in the door, thankfully.
Okay.
But definitely the culture, and I love that hospital. It's like a second home for me. I love bragging about where I work.
Coming from Marlton, but even just coming back almost 10 years later, I still feel like I just came home. There's people over at Our Lady of Lourdes, or there's people elsewhere in the organization that I interact with on a daily basis that I know from 10 years ago when I was at Marlton who have also furthered their career. So you came back to a lot of familiar faces, and it was just so comforting and so warm and so welcoming.
I get questions all the time. I could be on an elevator or someone see my badge and they say, you work for Virtua. And I do feel that instant sense of pride. What would you tell a potential patient about Virtua and why they should choose Virtua as a place for their care?
I would probably say it's a place that the norm for us is going above and beyond. That's something that we celebrate. It's something we encourage, and it's something that we do for each other internally, and then we can easily extend that on to patients. As a patient, yes, knowing that you have the most skilled providers, knowing that you have, people who are up to date on research and are doing the best that they can, that's a huge component to it. But I think just knowing that you're at a place where the employees care about each other, they know they're cared for by their leadership, they know that their kids are cared for, people that are at a place that they feel like is home, that take pride in it, that value, what they do on a daily basis. I think that's a huge extra component to it. And I think that's what sets Virtua apart so much from other organizations, is that it's the people.
I think it's wonderful, and I think it's great that both of you feel that way. It's always a pleasure for me to speak with colleagues that are so passionate about the work that we do, the work that you do, and what we mean to the community. So I really want to thank you for being a part of Here for Good and being a part of Virtua and committing so much of your life, your skills, your expertise to making sure that we can be here for good for our community. So Jeff, thank you for being here, and it was my pleasure. It's great speaking to one of our Virtua couples. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stay tuned for our next episode of Here for Good, the Inside Edition.